Okay, hi everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Great. Yeah, welcome back.
Okay, sorry about the technical issue. So, okay. So now, good evening everyone. I'm Benji. So I'm representing the research team at MIT Dell today. Okay, so I will be your host for today's event. And now it's uh, obviously it's past 10 p.m. in Taipei, so we are about to begin. Okay, now, so it's wonderful to have all of you here, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And before I introduce our guest, I would like to take a moment to give you a brief introduction about Mighty DAO. So, at Mighty DAO, our core mission is to connect high quality talents with opportunities in the Web3 industry. And we bridge the gap between skilled professionals and positions across the Web3 landscape and offer the latest insights in this field. So, through our Web3 career series interviews, we would like to provide insights for your career path. And I also like to invite you to share your thoughts after this interview on X. So, now let's grow together. So, at today's Web3 career series, we are thrilled to welcome Charlie. Okay, so Charlie is the co-founder and the investigation and compliance consultant at Chainvestigate, which is a renowned company for its blockchain forensic analysis. So with his solid experience in the business, Charlie excels in helping private and public sectors to track and analyze the complex on-chain data as you know it. So today, he will be sharing his experience as an investigate and compliance consultant at Chainvestigate. So, hi, Charlie. It's great to have you here. So, would you like to start by saying a quick hello to our audience?
Hello, everyone, and it is very nice to be here.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. And sorry about the technical issue before. Okay, so to kick things off, Charlie, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself and the journey that led you to found Chainvestigate?
Of course. So, quick introduction. I graduated from NTU Law, and then I started as a legal specialist for like about 2 years, and then like I start going to the crypto business, which I started as a anti-money laundering specialist in a local exchange in Taiwan. And then later on, I move on to Binance to join their anti-financial crime team. And we specialize in blockchain forensic analysis and collaboration with law enforcement. During my time in like the local exchange and Binance gave me a lot of perspective about like how crypto, like how it's like so different from traditional business. And then also like the more hands-on experience on actually handling the data, and also like about more the darker side of the cryptocurrency, like how criminals are using these as their tool to make profits. So during my time in Binance, I also joined an association in Taiwan. It's called Taiwan Virtual Asset Anti-Money Laundering Association, which has a lot of members from compliance team and also a lot of lawyers and accountants there. So I met this lawyer who later on became my co-founder. He told me that there's so many people in Taiwan, like they got scammed and then they don't know what to do. And he feels like they need someone to help them do these kind of investigations, give them the data insight, let them know, hey, I got scammed, what's the next step I can do legally, and also based on the data, like where did my fund go, and is there any relevant information that can help me trace my fund or trace who stole my money. So that's basically how we started the Chainvestigate, is to help these people to create professional crypto forensic reports for them. And then later on, there's a lot of interesting things happen. We get to have this chance to work with the United Nations ODC and then actually go to Bangkok in person to give them some training, and also a lot of training and interaction with law enforcement that I would like to share later on. So that's the introduction of my journey.
Okay, it sounds fascinating to me, especially from your legal background and to your Web3 industry. And but this is kind of personal, and my asking for myself because I'm also from a legal background and now in the Web3 industry. So I'm just curious about. So looking back, what were the most significant challenges you faced during this shift from the legal background into the Web3 industry?
I think the biggest challenge is like, like you're trying to engaging in something that you're not familiar at all. But like, because I was working in the crypto exchange, and then they happen to like also have certain kind of commercial relationship with very famous on-chain forensic tool company. So basically, they want us to use the tool and also bring that tool to the law enforcement. And so at first, it wasn't really in my job description, but they're like, okay, so Charlie, you're doing anti-financial crime. So this is part of your like category, right? I'm just like, I'm new here. I want to learn everything as much as I can.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, like I'll be very frankly with you. I go through the legal training. I went through the ML training, but I never went through a data analysis training. So I was like, does these solution provide trainings? Do they can they help me like to learn new stuff? And they're like, actually they do. So I got this chance to learn the new tool, learn how to do it, how to do data analysis. It was a big shift, but also I think the issue is that it's not just pure data analysis. It's also like you have to equip with on-chain knowledge, which in 2025, I think like a lot of people has that. But if you go back to like 2020 or 2021, there is very limited of people that has that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
At least in Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay, so according to what I just heard, this is kind of a big shift, right? From the legal to the new field. And I'm how did you overcome like the mindset and build up the mindset to overcome these challenges? And I mean, learning the new things, the difficulties, how did you overcome it?
I mean, to be honest, like I think it could be like depends on your personality. I like new things and new challenges. Uh, so like I didn't really feel like I'm overcoming anything, like
Oh,
it just feel like very natural to learn new stuff. And I think I'm naturally very interested in kind of computer science or like information related topics.
okay. It's really inspiring. Yeah, inspiring. Okay. So according to what you just said that you have the previous working experience at Binance, and especially as an investigation and compliance consultant. So, could you give us an inside look at a typical day in the life of an investigation and compliance consultant? And how has your experience before in the Binance shaped your current workflow and success metrics?
Okay. So I think like the typical day of a investigation and compliance are actually quite different. So for the investigation part, um, the thing is that in Taiwan we have more like typical cases. So the way to analyze them, to communicate with our clients, to communicate with lawyers, to communicate with law enforcement are pretty typical. So the thing that we need to do is just establish a workflow that basically that we can assist the client to provide us necessarily data. So, for example, if you're a scam victims, I need to know what's the scammer's wallet addresses. I need to know what's your transaction hashes that send from either your exchange your exchange hot wallet or your personal unhosted wallet. So we need to gather all of those information and assisted these clients because most of them don't equip that knowledge. So we try to make this process as easy for them as possible, but at the same time, as easy for us as well, so that it can be a very fast process to help them. And then like after we figure that out, we also need to collect off-chain part of the data. So it's not just on-chain. We need to know what exactly happened between them and the scammers. And then also like what's the legal process they're in right now? Did they report a case to the police officers? What's the process of situation from the police? And also we're working with the lawyers. So of course the lawyers can help you basically go through a legal process to file your litigations, to initiate the investigation, and also try to keep this whole process more organized. And then after that, usually what we will do is we will do like a primary analysis. It's not necessarily process, like every firm has different approach, but we would like to do that is because first of all, I feel like we need to let the people who come to us know what's like at least like a kind of a summary situation of what's going on. They need like a fast response, and we can let them know what happened so that they can decide their next steps. And we also help them kind of analyze, the likability, or like has the fund been kind of laundered too much that it will be like it's still traceable, but it just like doesn't worth it for them. Or like is there other like potential difficulties? We want them to know like the basis before they decide to move on to the next step. And then if they decided like yes, like this is what they want to do, then we will help them to provide a full crypto forensic report with like way more details. And then we will usually dive deeper and then try to find out, is there any like kind of sorry, my computer. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. Yeah, so like try to find the breadcrumbs that can help us lead to the identity of the criminals. And then after that, there's a lot of more hideous like procedure works, like communicating with the exchange to see if we can get like an immediate freeze for the victims, and also like communicate with the law enforcement to see if they're able to provide like the official documents to enforce the legal actions. That's more the investigation part side of the work. For the compliance part, I mean, there are very many different aspects of it. Usually a lot of clients want to know more about like licensing. So like how can they get licensed in different jurisdictions? Like in Taiwan, you need to get registered under the ML law. So yeah, we provide that kind of like specialized knowledge and sometimes more hand-on work. And a lot of firm doesn't even have a internal ML policies or procedures. So we help them establish that and even try to help them find the best solution for them. Like they need to do know your customer. I know a lot of people in crypto field that doesn't like that, but it's kind of a necessary step. So we try to make that easy for the company, but also easy for the user. And we also try to give them solution like suggestion for like on-chain data tracking, because a lot of time these firms are required to do transaction monitoring on their clients to make sure there's no like criminals are using their platform. So we're trying to find out what the solution is the best for our client. So that's pretty much the typical day of life for these two kind of different type of roles.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, and you have a second question.
Yeah.
So my experience in Binance, I think it kind of shaped more of the value and the workflow. So first of all, is the value. I think different from a lot of traditional working environment, they want to see you on site. They want to like kind of just want you to be there and then like look like you're working. Finance is a very different environment. Like most of people are working remotely, and then people just expect result. And then I think that's like what we're going for as well. Like we expect result rather than like you look like you work really hard, but the result is more important. And second of all, Binance has like pretty standardized, but also at the same time very flexible workflow. So that's what we kind of inherited as well, is that we try to have like a workflow that we need to follow through, which is standardized work conduct. I think it's very important because if you don't have that, then every situation you have to come up with like a different approach, then that's actually really energy consuming and it's very time consuming. But once you establish like a standardized workflow for your employees or for yourself, it's very easy that even there might be a different type of problem you need to resolve it, but you can use the same type of logic to solve it. And then also try to make it standardized so it become a knowledge that you can share with other people. And then another thing I learned in Binance is, sharing is very important, because when you help people, people helps you. And then that apply in many different ways. So like, I think those are like very typical values that I learned as a former Binancean.
Okay, good. It sounds very fascinating, especially for the differences between the investigation and the compliance. I didn't realize there is such a big difference between these two. I mean, the workflow and the day-to-day life between them. So I want to go deeper into the investigation part. So as we all know, the on-chain privacy demands grow nowadays, and zero knowledge proofs may become the new standard. And so some key data like the sender, receiver, amount, and timestamp is hidden in some transaction. So in the investigation area, how can the forensics tool bypass these technical barriers to track the transaction? And furthermore, what trends have you observed in how global giants are responding to this situation?
So that's actually an excellent question. Like, I would like to share my experience that I recently just went to Washington D.C. to join. Their SEC has a crypto roundtable specifically talking about like privacy. Yeah. So like, and we have some like very meaningful, I would say like dialogue and then like discussion there. That event is mostly about privacy, right? And like how privacy is important for cryptocurrency to grow, for business or entity to adopt cryptocurrency, which I like. Before that event, I didn't really think about that, but now I'm like, yeah, that's actually a very valid, I would say, argument, is that without like privacy, then like in a sense, cryptocurrency are actually more transparent than traditional finance. Like if people knows your account, knows your wallet addresses, they can kind of figure out your financial life, which is quite scary, I would say. So yeah, like I think these are very important, but we also need to know that at the same time, there are a lot of like bad actors abusing these kind of technology and these kind of tools, and because they know that without like proper regulations or tools, basically if I get to use like privacy coins or like using a mixer to try to block my fund flow, it's really hard to trace my fund. Not only the tech, like technically it's already kind of, I would say, there are a way to like, from my interaction with other investigators, there are a way to kind of understanding the basic like logic of how they function and then try to reverse engineering it. But also like legally, it's kind of become impossible because once you kind of go through like a mixer or privacy coin, even technically you can trace it. It become a probability. So it's like possibly that this withdrawal is related to that deposit. So when you present that in the court, it's still evidence. It's just not as strong. So I would say is that this is definitely a huge challenge to the forensic tools. I actually raised that question in the SEC event. And then, I mean, the privacy side solution providers answers like, like that's for the forensic side to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, but my point of view is that I believe that eventually there will be regulation require these like privacy service provider that you need to like provide the privacy for your clients, but at a certain point you probably still you're required to record some certain type of data, and you have to store them very like securely, and also like people with certain assets can request that data for law enforcement or for investigation purposes. I think that's how the kind of the futuristic trend is going to be like. But right now, the global giants, I think we're focusing on privacy first, because once ZK sync up, like the ZK zero knowledge proofs, this kind of technology more commonly applied to blockchain and then being utilized by like traditional finance specters peoples, I think that they will become the mainstream. And then once they become the mainstream, they will go back to try to solve the issue of like the abuse of these like criminals. That's what I think the trend is going to be like.
Okay, I see. So it sounds like there are still many challenges you have to solve, even for the global giants, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So speaking of the global giants, and for what I know, there's some global giants like Chainalysis and the TRM Labs. They all dominate the market with their massive database. But in Taiwan, we have our crime patterns, especially in fraud and money laundering. And this kind of crime possesses its local characteristics. So I noticed that Chainvestigate is currently developing its own on-chain crime database. So I'm just curious, how will this specialized database help translate your deep local insights into a technical mode, which gives you a competitive edge that the global giants cannot simply match?
I think what I would say, like, first of all, is how we approach the data is quite differently. Like for Chainalysis and TRM Labs, the way they approach the data is more like focusing on like the way we do it is, I would say, is like more crowdsourcing and data analysis. The way they did it is more like using crawlers and also like trying to collect as many like on-chain like data that's like they pile up like years of like attributions, or and put it in simple way, labels for these like data. But again, like you said, they're not that localized for different jurisdictions. Both Chainalysis and TRN Labs are from US, so they have very robust US labels that I would definitely give them that. But
Yeah.
I think like there are two things that I would say is kind of different, is that first of all, we don't identify ourselves as like a forensic tool platform, which both Chainalysis and TRN Labs, like that's their focus. That's their like gold products.
Okay.
Actually, in certain way, we're actually more like potential collaborators because we provide more like in depth and then more like localized and then more on hand and first hand database. So their database, I based on my understanding, it went through like more cautious collections and then like went through a lot of verification. And on the other hand, our data is like more on site. We're directly engaged with the victims, which most of the like Chainalysis or TRM labs, they mostly focusing on working with law enforcement. So their data is already kind of like I would say second-handed, not directed. And another issue is that when you're working as law enforcement don't want to share their data with you. So yeah, like usually you're signing a certain contract that they're not allowed to collect those data for their commercial uses. Usually the law enforcement will have their specific database that basically they're using like API to use the platform of Chainalysis and TRM labs, but all the data stay locally in Taiwan or in other countries. So I think like the way we collect data is different. But what we're trying to do is same, we're trying to provide information, but they're more focusing on like helping the law enforcement. And what we're more focusing on is helping the victims. I think giving us like more competitive edge that they don't match is that I think we're trying to make it even more like promptly, so that because when the victim realized they got scammed, they will go to police officers, and then that process already take a really long time. We're trying to shorten that. Like once they realize they got scammed, like when they come to us, like we're gonna give them, like my end goal is that they can acquire a professional like on-chain forensic report like promptly once they file in their information. And I hope that actually in the future we can make that cost very cheap or like even to free, so that they can get immediate help, but at the same time like we can get immediate data, so it become like a mutual help relationship between us.
Okay, I see. So you mean it's like more like a collab? It's not like a competitive relationship between you and the global giants, right?
No, it is not. Like actually like there's a lot of way for us to collaborate, because for them, like they would be very interested in localized data as well.
Oh, okay, I see. So, just another question. I just heard you said there is a first hand and a second hand database. I mean, how do you distinguish between these? Like, what's the first hand? What's the second hand?
I think I would distinct the first hand more like it's kind of a raw, unprocessed data.
Okay.
Like it's like directly from the source, and which compared to like because like once the data went through like a party, in a good way we can say they filter out the unnecessarily data. But in a bad way, if that filter is not that familiar with how to organize these data, it can be a disaster. So I think like from our perspective, we would rather to have the first-hand data.
Okay, I see. It's more clean, and for maybe can help more to achieve your purpose, like helping the victims.
Yeah.
Okay. So from what I heard and what I researched on the website, it appears that Chainvestigate currently has more focus on domestic clients and authorities. So would you say this is your core client strategy, or is this part of a phase toward a global stage?
I would say like at this moment it is more of our would you say it's a core client strategy? I think it I would rather say it's a part of a phase towards a global stage, because I believe that the like the technology or like the method we use to analyze data can apply globally. It doesn't have to be only in Taiwan. But of course, because we started from Taiwan, and to be honest, like like they always said, the scammer you always use Taiwan as a test playground, because in a sense, like we're quite a resilient to scam, right? So if it can work here, it can work somewhere else.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so like I think like that's kind of advantage we have as well. Like we can get to have like the first trend of how scammers are laundering their money. So right now we're still focusing on locally, but we do try to establish more international relationship. But I have to say that for the on-chain data, for the on-chain analysis, that part I think is easy to do international. But as how they apply in legal sense, how do lawyer present them, how it's going to be challenged legally in different jurisdiction, that is something that we need to work on before we enter the international phase.
Okay, I see. So also from what I just heard, there's a challenge for you to like present the reports of the on-chain data to the court as evidence. So there's also recently a Taiwan Supreme Court ruling, which the number is 114 and number 2062 ruling. So this ruling has set a higher bar for on-chain analysis reports as evidence. It basically ruling out the police authorities as the professional agencies for making such reports. Instead, the ruling says the reports must be prepared and endorsed by the qualified professional organization or groups to be admissible as evidence. So my questions here are, what are the major distinctions between the reports of police authority and the private professional firm? And the second one is, does this ruling signal a potential regulatory dividend from judicial system for local on-chain investigation firms like Chainvestigate?
That is a great question. And then I would like to add some add-ons, because like I was also looking into this ruling. So first of all, I have to say that this ruling doesn't really rule out that police authorities are not professional. It does says that they're not professional like appraisal agencies. However, it's more challenging that first of all, it's the process, like how this evidence has been treated, and how it has been has it been challenged during the previous ruling, because this is the Supreme Court. So there's like the High Court, the second level one. Yeah. And then during that process, they didn't really go through the process of how they manufacture or like how they make this report. What's the methodology they use, and then what is the result? Those were not clearly shown on the report that the police made. So like technically, if a police officers actually make sure the report contains all those elements, and then it has been well challenged, or it has been through the proper process in the court, it can still be admissible as an evidence. What this court ruling said specifically, this is a more legal thing, but we have this our law indicates that there are certain hearsay evidence can be admissible in court, which include this thing called like trustworthy trustworthy hearsay evidence report. So these kind of reports are basically specifically investigation data from like law enforcement, or of course like from the appraisal agencies as well, that can provide these kind of reports. So which means that like if police officers make like they will record your statements when you like file a case, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things are basically hearsay, because like it's basically people making statement outside of the court. And then those kind of reports are kind of more like a daily duty. They didn't gone through like a specific effort or method to make sure that everything is true. So yeah, so those things are not the trustworthy hearsay evidence. But for on-chain investigation or on-chain analysis report, I believe that if it went through a proper process and proper explanation, it can be. But as you said, like the question is still valuable. Like, is there a major distinction between the reports of police authority and private professional firm? I would say it is very depends on the quality and like how professional the analysis made the report. So because I have been to multiple police agency, law enforcement agency to give them trainings. So there are police officers that I think that could even be more like could be like very professional, like to like FBI level.
Okay.
So yeah, but there are also police officers that will tell me that the way they do it is by clicking the buttons on the browser. So like then when these two police officers provide their report, it might look very differently. The way they deliver it might be very differently as well. So yeah, like, and then that could happen in a private professional firm. But like if a private firm want to be successful, you have to select your analysis. You have to provide proper training to them. So yeah, like I would say, yeah, usually the private professional firm, at least like you have to be very familiar of your methodology and your process. That's like what we kind of keep emphasizing in Chainvestigate. And then also for the ruling, like would it be a regulatory dividend for firm like us? I would say like it is definitely a big opportunity, but I think it also raised a question that right now there's not really like a international standard for on-chain analysis.
Yeah.
There are international or like common practice in different jurisdictions. That is something that we're using right now. We hope one day it will become like a standardized kind of a protocol, so that it will be much more easier for us and also for like people who work in our legal system. But right now it's kind of like every report need to be challenged. And then at the same time, I kind of have to raise this up as well, is that one of the appraisal like process is that the people who make the report need to be kind of in person to explain the reports. If it's not like if it cannot explain it by itself, so it kind of raised like a more security issues. I believe that there were like accident happened to like the other like well-known on-chain analysis, like I think like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, the car accident.
Yeah, like it's an accident, but again, like it kind of raised the safety issue. Like I also believe that we legally we need to provide some kind of protection for like specialized victims. Personally, I will feel pretty stressed, like especially like a lot of our case, where our reports are basically trying to pinpoint the criminals. So we will hope to have some kind of like remote, like we can do it remotely, or some kind of protection to prevent us getting harmed or getting tracked.
Yeah, the protection is a must. Yeah, it's really a must, especially for you. You have to deal with the crime like the money laundering and the fraud, which frequently involves with some gang members and some dangerous people. So it's a must. Yeah. Okay, so it's really interesting for what you just said, especially from the ruling, the insight, and so thank you, Charlie, for this incredible insight. And your insight, yeah, so far have been incredibly enlightening. And no matter it's on your past experiences at Binance or your current achievements or observations, but now how about the future? I mean, this also is a perfect way to wrap up our session today. So my question is, what are your future plans for yourself as a Web3 investigation consultant? And where do you see the evolution of your role and Chainvestigate heading in the next 2 to 3 years?
I think it's quite interesting, like, because I'm trying to learn more, like, like I started from law doing on-chain data analysis. Now I'm moving forward to with the help of the AI. Like, I'm very thankful that we're in this era right now, but I'm also learning computer science as well, because I'm trying to basically, my core goal is to help victims. And then, like, to be honest, like, it is like very hard for them to get the help they need. And then, like, on-chain analysis at the same time is also a very it's a work that take a lot of effort, a lot of time. So I try to make that process like way more easier through the help of technology. So I think like the future plan is that we're gonna try to develop these like tools that can help us like make at least like more common or easy case that we already encounter. We know the pattern, so we can develop the solution based on the pattern, that they can have more like easy access, automated like reports. And I hope that by doing this, like, it will drastically decrease the cost for us and for them to get the help they need. And then I think the evolution for myself and the Chainvestigate, I think for the next 2 to 3 years is that we will kind of like transform into a completely different business model, which I'm still exploring. And like, to be honest, like, I'm both excited but also afraid of like whether it will be achievable or not. But I think the next few years we're gonna be more like a um database, and then like more like a API solution provider than a investigation firm. But our core is still based on our investigation knowledge and our investigation methodology. And I think that it will cover most of the victim's need. But if it's like a very delicate cases, like last year when Bybit got hacked, the way they launder the money is way different from how scammer launder those monies. So those will need more, I think, like experience and advanced investigation method. So we're also hoping that in the future, like, we can figure out this kind of more easy part of investigation, and then we can focus on more hard works.
Okay, sounds good to me, and I'm looking forward to your future in the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So thank you, Charlie, for sharing those incredible insights today. So although I personally have a long list of follow-up questions, but I would like to make sure that we open the floor to our audience. So if anyone in the audience has questions for Charlie regarding the topics today, please press the request or microphone button at the bottom left of your screen. So we would love to have you to join the conversation. So please feel free. Yeah.
Thank you, Benji. And then like, yeah, please, like, if you have any question you can think of, like, don't hesitate to click that unmute button.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Okay, hello.
So thanks for your sharing. And I have a quick question. So we often hear the stories of victims successfully recovering their assets through blockchain forensics, but the actual path to recovery remains a black box to many. So could you walk us through the practical workflow from the initial on-chain tracking to the final restitution of assets to the victims?
Of course. May I have your name? Is it Joanne?
Yes.
Okay, Joanne.
Sure.
So, like for these like successfully recovering of their assets, actually there are a lot of stories I think that were not even reported. But let me go through like two channels that I know, basically the flow that from the analysis till like basically the victims get the asset back, or like the victim, I wouldn't say like recover it, but more like they get compensated. That's how I would put it. So the first way is I think the most story that we'll mention is that they did on-chain analysis, and then they found out where the money stopped, or and then that node or that specific wallet addresses are freezable. So usually a crypto exchange. So they did it in time, like very fast. Basically, once they got scammed, they realized it immediately, and then they found a professional investigator, or they rarely did them themselves. Usually that's really hard, but some people might have the knowledge to do it. So they did that, and then they found out where it located, and it happens to be a exchange, or in Taiwan. Sorry, I'm gonna mention the other way of freezing, but it's usually they found the exchange and get their help to freeze the fund, and then they found the law enforcement who can help them first, like emergencyly freeze the fund, and then they need to get this thing called seizure order from the court. So with the seizure order, they can actually not only freeze the fund, but they can also request the fund controller to return the fund to the law enforcement. So not to the victim directly. In Taiwan, at least, the most approach is to return it to the law enforcement, and they will go through like the public selling in the court. Like sometimes you're gonna heard that, oh, the court is selling a house of like a criminal, something like that, or someone who went bankruptcy and their property got enforced and got sold. So once it got sold, it will become NTD, and then the NTD will get to return to the victims through a certain legal process. The second way to get it back, is that a lot of time you don't really get to like realize you got scammed in time, but everything is traceable. So every record is still there. We know who has received your fund, who basically are either the criminals or they are helping the criminals. So these group of people, legally, they're still liable for your loss. So basically, you can sue them through the legal process, and then you can execute the property they own. And then also, like usually, they will have incomes monthly, so you can basically request usually 1/3 of their income monthly, so you can slowly get your fund compensated. So that's the second way. And then the add-on that I want to mention is that not only exchange can freeze fund, most of the stablecoin issuer can also freeze fund. But however, in Taiwan, we don't really have kind of a robust like regulation with these stablecoin issuers at the moment. So from what I know, there are successful freezing cases. Like we actually have one ourselves, but there's no successful seizure cases because they might not necessarily, or the seizure order from our court is not sufficient. They need international collaboration with the jurisdiction either the stable issuer are in or the criminals that's in. So that's the situation and kind of the whole picture of how you trace fund until like how you recover it.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else for the questions?
Hi, Charlie. I'm Raymond.
Hello, Raymond.
Hi, it's glad to see you again, and glad to chat with you on the Express. And I have a question. If people want to follow a similar path like you from low to crypto investigation, what advice would you give them?
I think like for people who want to do this, they need to realize that it can be quite a hideous work. Like when you're dealing with a lot of data, you need to kind of be patient and be very like detail oriented to try to find out the kind of the leads. But at the same time, what I would give them the advice actually, especially doing investigation, because there are two part of crypto investigation. There's like what I'm doing is more like I would say like legal side of works or enforcement side. There are investigation that's more compliance side. Like I previously mentioned transaction monitoring. Actually, a lot of its work requires on-chain data analysis and investigation as well. But the method we did are very different. That's my another job I did in Binance. I transferred between the teams there before. So I would say like first of all, you need to know what you're investigating in, right? And then second of all, you it's kind of pointless if you're too like attached to like the very like minor details of every transaction. That's how I would put it. Like I would still hope an investigator put most of their efforts on more significant transaction or transfers than the small one. And also I think they actually, if you're from a data analysis background and then you want to join this and you want to do like more enforcement side of investigation, I would strongly suggest you to also look into like legal side of knowledge, because that's the end of like that's kind of the how your knowledge got applied. So yeah, like the advice I would give them is that understanding like what kind of scope you want to do for your investigation, and then understanding what kind of knowledge you need to equip. And then because you're talking about also kind of like a path in a career. So for career development, I would also like kind of want to tell them like you kind of need to think about like personally I feel like it requires a lot of knowledge. So is it a job that worth it? Is there a job opportunity that matches the requirement of this job? Because I feel like as the time goes by, there are more and more talents in crypto investigation these days. There's not enough in Taiwan yet, but there's a lot in different jurisdictions. So you also need to look into that. I think like more realistically, that is it a good time to join in this field or not?
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
No problem.
Okay, so now it's almost 11 p.m. So I think it's time to wrap up our session today. So thank you once again, Charlie, for your wonderful and enlightenment insights today. So I'm sure everyone has gained a deeper understanding of the Web3 investigation, on-chain investigation, on-chain data forensic knowledge work tonight. So if audience and everyone have any takeaways or insights, please share them with us on X. And Mighty DAO will continue to invite global professionals to share their experience. So stay tuned. So this interview will be available on our podcast, Inside Web3 Careers, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So feel free to listen again and share it with your friends. Don't forget to follow Mighty Zhao on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads for the latest updates. So once again, thank you, Charlie, and thank you for all joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night, and see you in our next station. Goodbye, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, Charlie. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.